Hey, welcome back, everyone, to another episode of Heat Soaked. I think we're on episode 8 now.
Oh my God, episode
Yeah,
8. Yeah, that
we're
sounds
doing it.
doing the damn thing, man.
Yeah, thanks to everybody for all the great feedback, both on YouTube and on podcast worlds, which is like Spotify, Apple, Twitter,
Apple,
all of
yeah.
that stuff. But we got a lot of great feedback, and we're doing it for you guys.
Yeah,
Um, so continue to follow us on social media, YouTube and Instagram, Heat Soaked FL, our personal Instagrams, Chris and myself, Cloudy IS 300, and yours, Storm
Storm
Spec.
Spec, yep. Storm Spec IS. This bad boy right behind us. So, I mean, talking about episode 8, man, we've had a little bit of adventure. We talked a little bit about everything so far, I feel like. Talked about import, we talked about muscle, we talked about the fun of Initial D, we talked about, our old cars, our old stories, and getting into today, we're going to talk a little bit about what we've done. If anybody is updated, or excuse me, for those who have seen our social media, well, no, we went to Leadfoot City over there in Brooksville, Florida, and we did some drifting and had a bunch of fun. So we want to dig in a little bit today and just talk a little bit about more, get in depth with drifting, and just get into the history and have some fun. Did you have a good time, man? Did you have a
Oh
blast
yeah, it
out
was
there?
awesome.
Yeah,
It should
absolutely.
have lasted way longer, but
Oh yeah,
like
absolutely.
that's how that's how it is when you're having fun. Time flies.
Yep, absolutely. Well, big shout out to Leadfoot for letting us come by, man, on one of their very first classes.
Hmm.
It was definitely a good time. We learned a lot from some of their active drivers that are driving in their events. A couple of great guys out there, man. If you guys are looking for a good spot, I definitely recommend Leadfoot City over in Brooksville.
Yeah, for
But
sure.
to get into it, I think the question was asked, man. I had a blast out there. I truly enjoyed just hanging out with some car guys as we talk about community all the time, sitting down and just going through the process and the different ways of the drifting and drifting processes, especially because there's a lot of technical information that you learn. And I think between us, we've done our fair share of drifting. But a lot of people ask us, like, hey, man, like, in our personal lives, those who aren't into cars, aren't into car culture, they're like, I mean, we see it, but what is drifting? What's the point? What's the goal? And I think today we're going to answer a couple of those things and go from there, and that's going to be the best thing for you.
Yeah, for sure. Well, let's just get into the history of drifting. Quick little history lesson. Won't be
Yeah,
too long, but
absolutely.
drifting started out in Japan, 1970s time frame. So during that time, drifting was essentially a necessity to go fast.
Hmm.
Tire technology wasn't as good as it is today. So one of the faster ways to get around a corner was to drift.
That's
So
right.
some of the popular drift cars back then in the 70s, what do we have?
Oh man, we had the old school Celica, the Gen 1s, 240 Nissans. We had the OG rear wheel drive Skylines. Man, and not a lot of people remember this, but an RX3. I don't even know what the name
Yeah.
of it is. I just RX3 is what they used back then. Like KT was saying, man, 1970s was a time very first and the godfather of drifting. Everyone knows who the drift king is. It's Keiichi Tsuchiya, but not a lot of people know that his mentor was actually Kunmitsu Takahashi, and he was the gentleman that really got into it. Well, it all started on this Touge roads. Everyone has their stories of drifting and goes through on the Touge or these winding mountain roads. The faster way to get through them was to take the corners at a certain speed. Now, we talked about tires. We talked about how they use them. Well, guess what? Tire technology wasn't what it was back in the 1970s, right? So they used bald tires to get past these corners, and then they started turning into the same thing that we do every day. Hey man, I found this cool trick with the car. Get in, let's go. Like, so finding that, and of course, Keiji Tsuchiya went on to become the Drift King when it actively became more of a circuit. But these are the really important things in the history of drifting. So as we go through this story and this breakdown, we talked about a little bit more because it started influencing the press, the magazines. It started influencing the race culture in Japan. It bled over to Europe, the United States a little bit later on because we heard about. I mean, what's our favorite thing we talk about when we talk about
Yeah,
drifting?
pop culture too, right?
Yeah,
So
yeah,
our favorite anime, which we covered extensively on this podcast.
Yep.
But Initial D,
Yep, Initial D. If you guys haven't seen that episode, go and check it out. Pause right here. Go check out the Initial D podcast. Come back to us. We're gonna go a little bit deeper as we go into it. Okay, Initial D.
the Beyond That, Fast and Furious,
Yeah,
Tokyo Drift.
everybody remembers Tokyo Drift. If you didn't know this, which a lot of people seem to not, Keiichi Tsuchiya was in Fast and Furious
Yeah.
Tokyo Drift,
Yeah, a
and
little cameo.
he was the camera. He was the fisherman in the scene where the guy he's learning how to drift this Evo
Hmm.
on the docks, and that was good. But it also had this greater influence on car culture where, well, back before we learned about this, we were always doing our own thing. Personally, myself, I was taking my car sideways in parking lots, gravel roads, anywhere that I had a truck or anywhere that a rear-wheel drive was possible. But I never learned the technical side. I never had a functional education on drifting. And I think actually going through the process and learning these different ways, for example, like as we'll hit on a little bit later, like I said, the technical side of drifting is a little bit more specific and a little bit more of a feel. Like I could tell you how to drift, function to function, but unfortunately, it's more of a you have to feel it while you're in the car. Which, as my car guys know, when you're enjoying it and you're going through that process and you're learning, that's when you fall in love with something when you're going through it by feel. Is that your experience with it at least?
Yeah, I'm excited to talk about that a little later on in the segment. But back to just the history of
Yeah.
drifting, and we've mentioned it again in past podcasts, but I think we didn't really touch on it. But like,
Mhm.
what is drifting actually? So what is that process? What does that look like?
Man, I think at my definition on the very first time, I just spit out something that was in my head. So let me ask you this. What is your definition of drifting? You have a more technical
Technical.
aspect of it.
So I just call it a controlled slide. It's controlled chaos, as Anthony,
Yep.
our instructor,
Yeah,
told us.
yeah. Anthony's a man.
So essentially, what it is that you are just breaking the threshold of grip, right over the maximum amount of grip that you have on your car,
Mhm.
so that you're sliding the car, but to the point where you're not just completely losing control and
Correct.
off into the
Mhm.
bushes or
The
something,
losing
right?
tail of it. Yeah.
Just enough of a loss of control that you can still bring it back in when you need to,
Yeah, absolutely.
which is really interesting because on the opposite side of things, when you're talking about grip driving,
Mhm.
so typical track racing,
Yep.
you want to be right below that threshold of maximum
Absolutely.
grip. But in drifting, you want to be right above it.
So your comparison for that, like you were saying, when you're finding the limits and you want to exceed the grip, but you don't ever want to exceed the full control of the car.
Exactly.
And your experience with that, of course, is knowing that you've done autocross, and of course the driving with that and the precision that it requires. But in autocross, if you lose that tail end at any point, it's a deduction.
Yeah.
So it's a deduction of time, which affects the driving, which affects your race standpoint or your lap standpoint. And it's a little bit of a different function, and that's kind of what you found out when we went out there today.
Yeah.
Uh,
Drifting, for me personally, is really fun. And I wish I got into drifting before I got into like racetrack driving,
yeah,
because it it allows you to find the limit of your car and just go slightly above the limit.
absolutely,
And at that point, then you at least know how much you need to dial it back to be within your limits.
of course,
And I feel like in some other forms of racing, you try really not to hit the limit. You want to avoid the limit
uh,
because when you go above the limit, bad things happen,
yes,
right?
of
So,
course,
in a lot of other driving scenarios, they always teach you don't get near the limit.
yeah,
But in drifting, you actually want to exceed the limit, but
absolutely,
just enough, right?
yeah.
So, if anything, it probably is easier to dial back than it is to try to find what that ceiling is.
Absolutely. And I think that's a really good representation of what drifting actually is and what the goal inside of that is. Because of course, like for me, who've done the dirt roads drifting or the parking lot drifting or the gravel road drifting, like I call it these things, but it was less control. It was more I had the ability to move the car, slide around in a rear wheel drive, whether it be a truck or a car, and it wasn't controlled because I didn't have any LSD, a welded diff. I always, would catch on one side or not really learn the full function of it. And I think that's when we get back into the history of it. Like these guys were just having fun. They were finding out, hey, if we weld the diff, both tires can spin. We can move this through, have a locking slip differential, which is going to be important for drifting. You can't just drift with an open differential and both tires aren't going to spin. You're not going to have that same effect. But it led into this sport that we know now today, and finding that limit, right? It's a right in between, like you said, controlled chaos. It's one of my favorite things that was said during the class time. It's finding the excess of grip to the limit of control in a turn or in a spin, man. And that's one of the funnest things. And I can only imagine back then in 1970s Japan, these guys are flying through mountain passes and they see like almost a 90-degree bend in the road and they're like, yeah, that looks good. Let's try that. Dude, the balls it takes to do something like that, I can only imagine. But at the end of the day, like we wouldn't be here if it wasn't for the godfathers of drifting. And at the end of the day, it's one of my favorite things to do. I learned it as early as I could, but like I said, the technical side never came to me. But nowadays, we're looking at sports like Formula Drift. It's it's going to be here in Orlando. I think coming up real soon, in this month, right?
End of May.
End of May. So and it travels all over the world. There's drift masters, I think, in Europe, and then there's a lot. I think I can't remember the one in Japan, but I know there's a competition in Japan. So all over the world, we have a sport for the car culture, for our community, which is extremely exciting for all of us who drag, autocross, and finally drift. And that's I think that's what is one of the most exciting things is finding out there's other people that really want to push the limits of what that chaos is.
Yeah.
And driving in chaos, man, is that you get your adrenaline pumping, you start breathing heavy, you're like just because you're amped up, the adrenaline's running through your body, you're doing something to a car that it wasn't really designed for, but at this point in time, we're gonna do it. Anyways,
for sure.
I think one of my favorite things when it comes to that is gonna be as fun as possible. It's gonna be going through that and making sure. So
Yeah. And you hit on it,
yeah.
the evolution of drifting,
Yeah.
right? So we talked about it starting out in the 70s and in the 80s, and then going into the 90s with Initial D,
Oh,
and you get
yeah,
into the
absolutely.
2000s with Tokyo Drift. I think that was a 2006 movie.
Yeah, something like that.
And
Yeah.
then, Formula D is really big right now, and all those other drift competitions. But drifting has evolved as we just described it right there.
Absolutely.
And nowadays, there are cars that are considered like almost out of price range for a lot of people because of this thing called the drift tax.
Oh, absolutely. There's the drift tax, there's the LS tax, the 2J tax, and I can keep going into it. The RB tax, we all see all of these certain motors who are used to getting abused, taking turbo extremely well, really fighting for the horsepower. Because back then, these guys were racing with these Skyline Celicas 240s, these very low horsepower vehicles, and they were drifting. But now it's evolved from that into this high horsepower, really lightweight function.
But inherently, they were rear-wheel drive vehicles.
Absolutely.
Manual transmission. So it was
transmissions.
easy enough to break the rear end loose.
Correct.
But when you think about today, and even in the 2000s, like what were the popular cars back then? The 240.
Yep.
So those are the S13s, the S14s.
S14s. Yep, that's
You
right.
had RX-7s were popular drift cars.
Hugely popular drift
Apparently,
cars.
IS300s are popular drift cars.
Nowadays, apparently, these are the next generation of them.
350Zs, G35s. So there are certain cars that were not necessarily designed to be drift cars,
Correct.
but they just were designed and balanced that drifters took to them, right?
Yeah,
they
absolutely.
made sense.
It was more of like a niche in the car manufacturing that they discovered. Anything with almost a 50-50 or as close as you can get weight ratio, rear wheel drive, locking slip, and a manual. As long as you had those 4 or 5 options, you were able to drift, and that's where drifting and this drift tax came into play. And like I said, we see Formula D. Sometimes we see these extremely high-end cars. We see the Mustang RTR drift specs nowadays. I think T-Pain's racing with RTR or racing an RTR drift spec. But then we see guys,
that are out there, the Deanna boys, and all seeing that. We're seeing Adam LZ with an E36 still balancing it out. We used to see him with a Sylvia, same thing as an S14, S15. So we're still seeing that same niche of cars, but then of course we have some cool guys that are doing like Mustang. We're seeing Fox bodies. We met a guy who's developing a drift Camaro.
Yep.
And honestly, I was in for that because it looked pretty dope. But that's fun, man. Like finding out there's an American car that you can go and find a drift angle kit for. Dude, I'd never even thought of a Catfish Camaro or anything like that. Being able to throw an angle kit on and go from there. This guy opened my eyes to it. He had two. He was just building this thing out, and I was excited.
Yeah.
I was like, dude, I'd love to see this on the track one day. So that was going to be the blast of that. But that's the evolution that we led to. It's now a sport that we all look for. I know I watch Formula Drift as much as possible just to see how crazy these guys get with these insanely like 1,000 horsepower motors. And then, I come home to that. And but my goal at the end of the day, I think after our class, there was an evolution inside of myself as well. Because my original thought for this build was, yeah, we're gonna, here's what we're gonna do. It's gonna be a street champ. We'll make it nice and pretty. But at the end of the day, I want my driver feel has to be, top notch. As much as I like things looking nice, as you can tell by the paint job on this car, I would never sacrifice the driver experience or the form, I guess form over function type of thing. I would always choose function over form every single time I get. But after drifting, it's like, man, I want to see what this thing can do on that track, man. Like I'm just super excited to do that. So I guess going back and finding the evolution of myself, did you have any epiphanies that day of your first time like full on drifting and going through that?
Yeah. So in my sort of like automotive history, I've never really was a drift guy. Growing up, I've seen drifting and watched Fast and Furious and all of that stuff. Initial D, but it just wasn't really something that interested me at the time. But I think I was still learning about cars, and I was still kind of trying to figure out what do I like about cars. Right. So we talked about it in a past podcast, but I like just being really hands-on, wrenching on my car, doing things like that. And then eventually when I got into wanting to do more other than wrenching on my car, it kind of evolved itself into more so like track days, grip driving.
Absolutely, yeah.
So it's not to say I've never gotten a car sideways in a parking lot, but it just wasn't something that I really was like intending on doing as more of like a hobby. It was just like, oh, well, I have an opportunity to slide this thing. Let's just do it for fun, right? So I really got into...
I'm a bad influence. I just want to start everybody off. I'm a very bad influence when it comes to these
when
things.
you're like a 16-year-old or 17-year-old, and you have an empty parking lot, your eyes go like wide, especially if it's raining.
Oh, yeah. That was
up north when there's snow on the ground.
See, I never experienced the snow. Like, I'm Florida born and raised. And well, I mean, I grew up a little bit all over the world. My old man was, just traveling a lot. So the main thing with me is the fact that we were pushing through, but I was always rain. You always waited for the rain in Miami. As soon as it rained in Miami or even in North Florida or even right here in Central Florida, that the parking lots were a little bit oily. You're a little bit, if it rained hard enough, but man, you could have some fun out there. And guess what? You didn't have to sacrifice your tires just to do that. You could get some slip and get in there. And then I didn't have to worry about having a locking slip differential or welded diff.
And you weren't really trying to drift like we were at
it was power slides.
You were just,
that's all
getting the car sideways for fun, right? I mean, like
as much as I could. Yeah, absolutely. Because the second you see something like that, it's like, oh man, you see a car push to its limit, you want to make sure you focus on that and go from there. Absolutely.
Yeah, but for me, when I was getting the car sideways, it was just an unnatural feeling.
Yeah.
You're taught to go through driver's school. You're taught at age 16 when you have your permit. You just stay on the road. Don't do anything stupid.
All four tires need to be touching the tarmac at all times. Like,
when you're turning, make sure you turn slow enough that you don't like tip your passenger over in their seat, right?
The water cup and the oh man.
But that was kind of like me. And then I got into more motorsports and actually driving the car a little more harder, right?
Yeah,
So
yeah,
going on a
yeah.
racetrack. So that slow buildup of the sensation of actually feeling like you're flying around in your seat,
Yeah.
because obviously we don't have bucket seats in our daily
No,
driver.
yeah, absolutely
So
not.
even taking a turn at like 35, 40 miles an hour, you will feel, the little sway, but it's completely different than the feel when you're actually going around in a
Yeah,
donut.
absolutely. No, and I can compare. So I have a funny story about the first time that we had this old van, right, when I was learning to drive. Of course, I had other vehicles, but it was like, this is, you're gonna learn in this little like Kia or this old school like Ford, metal body Ford, and you're gonna drive around with that. Well, I remember my my old man's girlfriend was in the passenger seat, and we're coming up to this turn, and I had just got done watching all of these shows, and I was getting so into it. And there was a turn coming up, and we're talking like straight 90 degrees. And we're going up, and I'm looking down, and I'm still doing 40. I was like, yeah, I can make it. And I could see the panic in her eyes as her eyes started getting whiter as we got closer. I started braking, and I just turned. The van, remember, this is a van. I am so lucky I didn't tip this thing flat over, but we just went. I had to pull over the car because she was just freaking out. But it was one of those really funny experiences that we have, and the timing of it and everything was just so fun, but it was so terrible at the same
Yeah.
time. So we can go from that.
And it's a really unique experience that, let's be honest, most people driving out in the world, 95% of people in the world, they just drive their car point A to point B to work and whatnot. There's not many people that actually are into motorsports, that do autocross, that do track days, that do drift
Yeah.
events, drag racing, any of that.
Yeah, that's true, man. It's like once you experience like that, that's how I'm curious to see it from your eyes. Is I never experienced of course everyone drives. We try to keep it on the road. We kind of keep a grip. I know how to take corners, how to go from the outside in, inside out, things like that. But I never experienced the autocross days that we talk about, and I've experienced the drift. But now we're kind of going into each other's world and experience, and I enjoy the opinions and the factors that you see it as, especially when you're doing the full circle or you're losing control for the first time from a clutch kick, and things like that. And that's I feel like it's the best feeling in the world. I was grinning ear to ear, and when our instructor was like, "All right, we're gonna see how this feels," I was like, "Hit it!" And I just put my I just put my hand on the corner, and he looked over at me, and he was like. And he just clutch kicked, dude. And we just and we started rolling. And I was like, all right, I'm ready. I'm ready.
So what was your favorite part of that day?
Oh, dude, of course it was learning the balance of control. The most fun about that day was the tire change part. So what had happened was one of the tires actually just blew, it debeated off the rim in the G37 that we were the one we were driving around. And after that, it was realizing like your gearing and your tires and your every angle, your toe, your camber, everything, all those factors that you talk about have a difference on what gear, your control in the car. My change from second gear drifting to first, which isn't the best because I want to make sure I stay in second. But with those grippy tires, they gotta get that jump on it. So I was in first gear a little bit differently. The most fun part of that day for me was learning that difference and finding that point of control where I can just start bouncing on the accelerator and start bouncing on the gas and really get that full, like, you saw it when I got it. Like you saw the moment when I started just ripping that thing, and that was the best. When I started doing full 10 circles and started trying to turn out of them, that was the best part. It was real control. It was that feel behind the wheel, and it was that driver experience that I won't forget. And it's really honestly got me wanting to get back into that driver's seat and make sure that we just keep practicing to get hopefully to a point where I can tandem drift. And that's honestly like that's what I was thinking. It was just a blast. That was my favorite part of that class. It was developing that control, really listening to those guys who know what they're doing, who are drifting every other weekend using that pad. Left Foot City was awesome, man. I had a blast. But what was yours?
Yeah. And it's so gratifying when things kind of click in your
Oh
mind.
yeah, absolutely. When you
But
finally get the hang of something you've been working on for a while,
Mhm.
absolutely.
Yeah, and you know, we definitely need to go out there more because one class isn't going to make you an
No,
expert
no,
either.
I'm not. Yeah, I wouldn't
But
call
we
myself
learned
that.
a lot, and it was really fun. And for me, I think my favorite part of the day, there was a couple of things actually. So one of them was that I didn't throw up. I
KT was so nervous. I was like, wait, what's going on, man? You nervous? He's like, I just don't want to get throw up, man. And I was
I
like,
didn't
what
want
do
to
you?
have so much fun
I was like, what do
and
you mean you're gonna
realize that
throw
I
up?
was nauseous.
He goes, oh, I get nauseous when I'm what did
Roller
you say,
coaster.
roller coasters? I said, what do you mean you get nauseous?
How bad would it have
Dude.
been to love this sport, love this activity, only to be physically limited by your body?
I would have physically inserted drum and main into your body, and just made sure that you kept going. We'd have to, dude, we'd have to figure it out. I cannot believe you didn't tell me that until we were there. He didn't tell me any of this. We're driving there. I'm like, yeah, we're gonna have a great day. Da, da, da. We get there. We're about to get in the car, and he's like, yeah, help it, throw up. And I'm like, what do you mean? And then he tells me this story, and I'm like, what do you mean? I have to, oh my God. That was hilarious. I laughed so hard, but then you got in.
But I survived
You
that day.
listen. You pulled your bootstraps up, man, and you got in the
Nauseous at
car.
all. I didn't
Yep.
have to take any sort of medication, nothing. So
Yeah.
I'm good. I'm good to drift
All
now.
right, so we're good to drift. That's what I'm talking about, baby.
But no, I think every part of that day was enjoyable. There were different aspects that were enjoyable. So
Absolutely.
you were describing the first time he took us out there just to go, we were in the passenger
Yeah.
seat just to go a couple
Yeah.
circles just to get us to feel what it feels
Yeah,
like to
yeah,
be in
yeah.
a car like that. That was a pretty fun experience right then and there. And then actually when we got to sit behind his wheel, he gave us a little rundown of this is what you have to do.
Yeah,
You have to give it a little bit of gas, get it moving, just really low gear,
absolutely.
and then clutch kick it while you're slightly
Yep.
at angle. So that experience itself, when someone describes it versus when you're actually doing it,
Yep.
it doesn't translate one to one. So that's what makes it fun. It's a little bit of a challenge.
Yeah.
Hey, they gave me instructions, but I got to execute those
Yeah,
instructions.
but I think what I love most about that is the challenge. And I think what you were explaining in the beginning, when we got in that car, my favorite part of actually sitting down and going from there, the factor of it was it really threw me back in time to the process, and really threw me back to when I was trying to learn this sport and really focus on something like that. But then I'm in a place where I can develop my skills. It was that realization that really there was that connection point, and I was like, this is great. I can actually, go full on. I don't have to hold back because of, anything crazy. This is an open, learning objective that I'm really focused on. And honestly, that memory of being back in a crappy little car and just in a wet parking lot, and as I'm sliding around, and it's like once you arrive back in your body from that flashback, you're like, all right, it's go time. I gotta make sure we're focusing and learning. And you're right. It's finding out your rhythm in a car. Everyone's rhythm is different, and every car is different. If you change one factor on that car, you have to refine your rhythm.
Yeah.
All over that. And I think that's the best way that I can communicate that with people is, when they're like, oh, what's drifting? I'm like, man, it's that controlled slide. It's that chaos, but it's also finding your rhythm behind the wheel. And I feel like that's really important for people to understand, because there's a lot of different types of drift entries or drift ways. There's the clutch kick, there's inertial drift. I'm missing one. It's right on the tip of my tongue and I can't remember it. But
Parking brake.
yes, I'm sorry. Yeah, thank you so much. The e-brake, the pull, or we see a lot of that, especially in professional drifting. But the e-brake pull with those three factors, that's a lot of different types of entry, and a lot of people learn the different ways. I of course was all in the parking brake the very first time I tried it, but developing your clutch kick, developing your control, your really motor skill function, and the sensitivity at where you're at. That development for car guys, especially for me, I'll speak for myself and not the whole community, but guys, tell us what it's like your first time ever doing something like that. It's like your first time being in a turbo car.
Yeah.
It's that first experience when you hear that, the blow-off valve, and you're like,
You don't expect it.
this is about to get serious. that right there was
But
good, man.
I enjoy how with drifting you can be as technical as you want.
Correct.
So everything that you listed, all those different initiation methods, you can go down a rabbit hole trying to perfect every single one, or you can just do like we did at that class, just get a couple clutch kicks in and you're already going sideways.
That's true. I think that was the easiest way to start it off, man. The guys did it right. They really get you sideways. They really try to develop you. And I think, like I said, I can't wait to get back on track with my own piece,
Yeah.
and try to get out there. And I'll have to bring plenty of spare parts because I know I'm gonna wreck some stuff.
Well, I think the camaraderie of the day was also something that was really fun and interesting to be part of. So when we were there, it was a class.
Yeah.
And there was about 4 other people there with us.
Correct.
As well as like 3 or 4 instructors.
Yeah.
So we had a group of guys
Yeah.
and girls
Yeah.
there drifting and learning from each other and just talking about cars.
Oh, dude, yeah,
That's just really fun, right?
absolutely.
So everybody had a really good time. We all learned from each other just about what made them get that particular car. The one
Yeah.
guy we were with, he actually just got his Z not too long ago.
Yeah, that's right.
And
That's
he was
right.
like dying to get out there, and he had just welded his diff, and he was like, "All right, just the day that I test this thing out."
Yeah, dude, it's funny because he had gone to the class before that, and then basically the other guys. So there's 2 sets of groups, right? We'll call the beginner class, which is okay. Everyone's gonna start from somewhere, and that's where I wanted to make sure I wanted to refresh. I wanted KT to experience that full starting method, and we had one other person with us, but these guys had been in the intermediate section. They were learning their transitions. They were learning a little bit more of that control. They had gotten everything down. The main function for that was the conversations and the, hey, watch this section, especially if you're going to develop your transitions and go from there. You're right, the camaraderie of that and talking to the guy and him going like, we're all cheering each other on, like, oh man, hey, that was a good section right there. Good lap, keep trying that out, And he was so excited about his welded diff and having the car, and he had just purchased it like rough and ready. It was fantastic to see that kind of camaraderie, that kind of community.
Yeah.
It was something that we live for. It's something that we really strive for, and it's what I love.
And one of the funniest parts of that day too is I think we started the day with like 6 cars and we ended with like 2.
This is no rap. This is no bad rap to anybody there. There was one guy, he broke like 4 cars. He broke 4 cars out of the 6. And we were all like, oh man, but it was such a good time that it didn't even matter. We were just there to enjoy the time, the drive, the experience. And honestly, at the end of the day, that's what everyone was there for. I think it was a funny experience. The guys were all cool. The instructors were great. And, we learned a lot from each other. We had discussions about, cars, but it kind of led into life, and
Yeah.
it was some of the best. Some of the guys were local to that area. Some of the guys were from this side. And so that was the funnest part, is finding that community everywhere, that culture. And that's going to be the best thing I love.
Yeah, if you guys haven't seen it, go on our YouTube, go on our Instagram. We actually made a short little video of our day.
Absolutely.
But yeah, check out Leadfoot City if you're in Florida, and if you're not, put it on your destination list.
I'd at least recommend it. All right, it's a good time. I know we have some local spots here in Orlando we're going to be looking to hit, as well as getting back to Leadfoot City with this hunk right here, and really focusing on that. But I think the real good focus on that drift class was from beginning to end. It was a positive place to be. Everyone on the staff was great, and it was going to be one of those things where I looked forward to even getting to an event with them, going back, saying hi. And they do events all the time, guys, at Leadfoot City, and you can ride with the driver if you want to really try it out one day, really jump in the pool or try to swim, kind of thing. And now I'm thinking about taking this IS and possibly turning into a drift mobile.
Well, speaking of which, so if you were thinking of turning this into a drift car, let's get into what needs to happen to do that.
Okay, well, first, maintenance. Everybody knows that anything worthwhile, it has to be done and maintained. So got to make sure the timing's all set up, redone. Make sure all the seals are good, no oil leaks, can't have anything on the track. So make sure power steering's good, because Of course, you would always recommend power steering for the function as we need to let go of the wheel and movement. Want to make sure your bearings are all set for, the back wheels, everything like that. But in the importance of it, that's just the maintenance side. If we're getting into the real function side of drifting, this is an automatic open differential 2JZ motor. So the motor itself could most likely do exactly everything I need it to do as is. If I wanted to add a little bit more power, it would be easy to kick out the back end. But before I can even get to that part, I need a manual because drifting and automatic is fun. You could do like an 8 HP swap, which is a different transmission swap that can do either, automatic or manual. But I want a real functional manual in this. That's going to be the install that we probably go to first that we get done. And that's going to be on content, guys. You'll see us start uploading on that. I need to get close this differential. I'm looking at an LSD, which is a locking slip diff. If not, we can weld this one and go find a locking slip diff somewhere else. That way we can switch them out on days we're doing something else, doing any tracking or anything like that. Honestly, from that point, it's double checking all the fun stuff. I need to make sure my suspension is tuned for it. I got to make sure all of my my camber is correct. I have to get it aligned, drift aligned. There's another setup that it requires for every other style that you're going. And of course, through this adventure that we're gonna go through, if that's exactly where I pull the trigger, that's it's gonna be a fun little motion that we turn this into a little drift machine. So if that's the function, then that sounds like we're gonna do. So in basics, to summarize your question, it's locking slip diff is needed or a welded diff. We can talk about that as we go along. A manual transmission is going to be needed. From there, this thing might actually do some slippage.
Yeah.
So
And you said it too indirectly, but you don't really need too much to get out drifting.
exactly.
You don't need the whole coilover set with the angle kit.
No, you don't need an angle kit.
Control arms.
Yeah.
You don't need that. I mean, it's great to have.
It's nice to have,
And
yes.
it'll allow you to get better angles and blow more smoke, do all that fun stuff. But in essence, all you need to do is be able to break this thing loose and go in a couple turns and keep momentum going, right?
Yep, and that's it.
So, plan wise, I think you're on the right track. The biggest thing, like you said, is you need that manual transmission to get that diff handle.
If anyone's got a manual W58, W55, or anything that can fit into this bad boy, hey, hit us up. Let us know. I'd love to see if we can get it. If you're donating it, let me know. If you're not, also give me a shout. I would definitely be interested in finding a manual transmission sometime here soon. Getting it. We're definitely making some content, throwing it on this bad boy. I'm gonna put KT to work. Make sure we're using everything in his, but we have to get his car rolling as well. So we're making sure we're working on that one day at a time.
Yeah.
But yeah, man, it's you're right. First things first, let's get a manual in it. I can weld this diff and get a lock and slip diff later on as we go along, especially if we're just going to track this car for a little bit. Also, as we talk about tracking a car and we're talking about what it takes to be drift ready, we're going into this $2,000 challenge this coming year. And it's going to be something that, hey, the options that we're looking for, especially because it's going to be completely different from the drift spec that we're looking at, is are we going to focus on this car? Are we going to focus? The $2,000 challenge, as we were explaining, is we have to buy, build, and race a car for under $2K. And of course, there are some people that go a little bit past that. We want to stick to the rules. We want to get it done. And to do that, do we want to look for something that can possibly be drifted later? I don't know. I would like that. But at the end of the day, that's something we have to decide as we look at, hey, we're going to be autocrossing and dragging this vehicle. Is it something that we look for to the future? So maybe turn that into a drift machine, a drift car, a drift project, or we really focus on the task at hand and get into the autocross section and get into the actual, drag section and find something that we can beat. At the end of the day, man, the world is our oyster. We're definitely finding something that we can do. We're going to be creative. We're going to develop it. And once again, heads up, if you see a W58 or W55 for this thing, I'd love to slap it in. But keeping it simple with cars, especially if you're starting, you don't need all of those parts. Some of the best things and best conversations we had while we were there at Leadfoot City
is basically less is more when you're starting drifting. You'll learn what you need as you go. Your car usually has exactly what you need to get started. Get that manual, weld that diff, slap it in, put some gas in it, do an oil change, please. Make sure it's not leaking, and go. Get on the track, have some fun, break some things, because that's what drifting is. There's a drift tax for a reason. And honestly, it'll put a smile on your face at the end of the day. You'll be mad that you got to pay for something. You'll be happy when you're back on track.
I mean, that's what the G37 was over there. It was more or less stock. It didn't have an angle kit.
No,
it didn't really
no.
have anything on it. Just as a manual transmission G37. That's it.
Yeah, that was it. Like, at the end of the day, I've been looking on Facebook Marketplace for one, maybe a little more than I should, because after that experience, I was like, this would be a lot of fun.
Yeah,
So
you never know. Maybe this will be your built up daily driver or weekend warrior, whatever.
yeah,
And then
exactly.
you'll actually just get a dedicated drift car.
This will get us to the shop. This will get us moving. Do it exactly what we need it to do. But at the end of the day, finding something for you is all up to you. But I recommend finding someone with all of those things. Getting to a drift day. You go to one of these, one of the tracks. Go to one of the drift pads. Find somebody that get involved in the community. Talk to some people. Do your research before you get into this. But at the end of the day, if you like cars, you're part of the culture, you're part of the community, you can't not have a smile on your face while you're going sideways. But I had a blast. It was fun. I can't wait for the next one. I know this is episode 8, but we're cranking these out. We're getting it done. And now I got to go spend some money, which to my chagrin is going to be fantastic. So I'm going to go into debt now.
Yeah. Well,
You're already in debt. I know. All right.
I'm one step ahead of you.
He's like, oh yeah, I get it. But don't worry, I can't listen. The day that we get your car on the road. So okay, quick build update from KT. What step are we at now? What are we working on? What have we done? I know you posted some good stuff on your feed.
So the
please put it
entire right-hand side, my entire passenger side of my rear suspension,
Okay.
it's assembled back into place minus my rear caliper. I have it off. I'm painting it right now, so that's just
I get it.
mean.
But and you were so mad about brake shoes. You're so mad about brake.
Those are the worst.
I'm laughing, but it's so good. He posts. He's like, you know what I love about brake shoes? Nothing. Like
that little 30-second video in reality took like 3 hours.
I'm not laughing at that part because I know the drill.
But no, I got 3 out of 4 corners done. So I'm moving on to the driver's side.
Okay.
So once I get that reassembled, which includes my upper, lower rear control arms, traction arm, tow arms, my wheel hub, my axle is currently off as well.
Okay, gotcha.
So it won't take very long because I know what I'm doing now because I did it on the right side. So just got to do it on the left side.
I got you.
Once I get that in place, I just need to throw an exhaust back up there, put some gas in there, put some diff fluid, change out the oil, and I'm like good to go. Yeah. So, it's going to happen really soon.
Dude, I can't wait. We are definitely taking a video and we're definitely doing a development on this. I want you to walk through your car. I want the next episode for these guys to know how much work you put in it. We're going to do a walkthrough of the vehicle. I want to make sure they see the effort you put into making this thing probably the nicest IS 300 ride, just ride at all that we're going to see. So I'm excited. I want to make sure we get there with you guys. Stay tuned for that. That's going to be absolutely a bunch of fun. And I'll make sure we find time to do that for you. How long has it been since the car's been driving, man?
Oh man, it's been over a year.
So he's itching.
It pains me to say this.
God,
stop making me think about it.
Cars are pain. We learn that as we go along.
It was my fault because I redid the front suspension and it only took a weekend.
Yeah.
And I got overly optimistic and I was like, oh, it only took a weekend to do the front. I might as well start removing some of the rear as I'm assembling the front. So once you start taking things off and you have to physically cut it out, it doesn't go back in as quick.
Well, also you found rust, you found stuff you were going through. Yeah, guys, leave us a comment on what you guys want us to talk about. Make sure you guys click that like button, click that subscribe button, like us on Instagram at CloudyIS over for KT and StormSpec IS for this hunk right here.
and we'll go from there. But I'm excited for the next one. We're looking at episode 10 coming up here soon, and we're definitely going to be putting out some more of that short form content we talked about. We are putting out episodes every
2 weeks.
Every 2 weeks.
That's
to
the
make
goal.
Sure, yep, to make sure you guys are still hearing from us, knowing what's going on. We'll definitely keep in touch about the $2,000 challenge, and head out to Leadfoot City. Head out to one of your drift tracks. Let's get Florida. Let's get the world drifting again. Let's have some fun with that.
Yeah,
all right?
for sure.
Absolutely, brother. Let's get out of here. See you guys.
See ya.
Have a good one.